Hey YouTube, this is Peter with Stuff Addict, and today I'm going to review the AGV Sportmodular fully 3K carbon motorcycle helmet. I've been away from YouTube for a little bit because I just got busy with life, lots of injuries and random hobbies I've been taking on, so I haven't had time to make a video very recently, but I just got my tax return, and one of the things I wanted to get was a new motorcycle helmet, and I wanted something modular since I've been doing more touring riding. Now, for the past 5 years, I've been using a Shoei RF-1100, so I'll be doing a bunch of comparisons on that. But first, let's just go over the Sportmodular itself. So what's special about the AGV Sportmodular is that it is the only modular helmet that is fully 3K carbon fiber. So all the other helmets like the Neotech 2, the Schuberth, C4 Pro, they're all the regular polycarbonate whatever it is, making them very heavy. If you didn't know, modular helmets are generally almost a pound heavier than their full face counterparts. So like RF-1200 versus Neotech 2, you'll notice it immediately. If you put a Neotech 2 on after an RF-1200, that it is much heavier. I don't care what people say about it being well balanced, I can feel the weight. Another thing I really like about this helmet compared to the Neotech 2 and the Schuberth is that you're not pigeonholed into a type of communication device. So the Neotech 2 will have like a Senna SRL or something like that built in, like has a cutout, and the Schuberth is usually also using, I think, a Senna product now too. So you have to use those integrated modules for it to look clean. And this one does not have anything like that, so you're not stuck with a proprietary communication. So I can switch between Cardo and Senna all I want. First, let's go over the just random features of the helmet itself. So you see here, you have your fully modular lock, and inside you have your helmet liner. This helmet liner has two sides. There's a cool side and a warm side for winter and summer riding. It has a double D-ring system, so no ratchet lock. The rings are made of titanium, so that's nice. You have an air vent on the chin here, like that, and you have one on the top of the helmet, like this. And then on the back of the helmet, you have a spoiler, which also acts as an exhaust. So taking some cues from their higher end race helmet, like the GPR Pista. Now, what's interesting about this, it also has a center lock visor. So maybe that's usual for AGV, but I'm used to Shoei where it comes off the side, and it always locks. As you can see here, I have a Senna SMH10 installed, and it clips on using the clip-on mount instead of a double sticky mount, so it does fit into the helmet. I will note, however, though, that it does create a gap here, and that gap will allow more noise onto this side of the helmet, so you probably actually want to go with a sticky mount. There's also an integrated sun visor that you control with this switch here. So if you open it, you just toggle the sun visor like this. And in my experience, it covers most of the field of view, and the tint is adequate. I feel like it could be a little bit darker, but that's okay. It's not super light or anything. Now in the box, what you have optional is a chin curtain. So this is the extended chin curtain if you want to block out as much wind noise as you possibly can. So it comes down pretty deep onto your neck. The visor also comes with a pin lock shield in the box. I'll show you that real quick. And see, included pin lock shield, so you don't have to buy that separate, and the visor's obviously pin lock ready. And then you have your regular chin curtain. You can also go chin curtainless if you want. You have your carrying bag. This is just regular helmet bag. And there's just some other accessories like what's interesting I've never seen before is a visor lubricant. So if this mechanism gets a little bit sticky, you can lube it up and it'll work better, hopefully. So that's all that's in the box. Put it away. Also, another note, if you're going to buy this, be careful if you're buying it in the United States and you see cheaper prices from European retailers like FC Moto. Those are the same helmet, essentially, but the problem is they're probably not going to be the DOT certified helmet version of the Sportmodular. They'll probably be the ECE only ones, which are not legal to use in the United States. Not that anyone would probably check, but who knows. So I'll show you how the helmet looks on my head. If you never put on a modular helmet before, you open it first before you put it on. And then throw it on this. This is a size large and the gloss carbon. You do up the rings. One complaint about this helmet is that the neck strap comes way too deep onto your neck, and it is quite deeper than my RF-1100 that I'll make a comparison to later. But what I've noticed about that is that because it's deeper on your neck, you don't need to tighten it as hard as it would be over here because your neck just sticks out more. So I'm feeling like some of the other reviewers are probably just tightening it a little bit too tight, more than necessary to make it safe. So I tighten it just enough that it's just barely touching my neck. And then you bring down the front of the helmet, and it locks in. So that's how it looks on my head. I find it to be the slimmest and most full face-esque helmet for a modular style helmet than any of the other ones. All the other modular helmets look a lot bigger than this. This is much slimmer. But a con of that is that I do feel the helmet touch my chin a lot on the inside here. And that's a little bit irritating. It could be the position on the helmet of my head a little bit that's causing that, but I feel like the helmet just could be a little bit longer over here so it doesn't make contact with my chin. Of course, with the helmet up, you look a little bit like a dork, like you ride a R1200 GS, but that's okay. But now, hey, now you can go to the drive-thru at Starbucks and you can talk to the person much more clearly than you would with a full-face helmet. And that's what counts, right? Also, inside the helmet, you have integrated speaker pockets. So if you can see it, it might be very difficult to see. There are little foam cutouts there on each side where you can sneak in speaker mounts. That's good if you have big ears like mine, because if you have to mount the headphones, or the speakers in this case, too close to your ears, it'll rub against your ears and be really irritating. Alright, so that's the main features of this helmet besides it being carbon fiber. Also, the helmet only weighs 3 pounds 4 ounces, which is about the same as an RF-1200, RF-1100. Now I'll show you my RF-1100 real quick and I'll make a quick comparison. So here's the RF-1100. I know the 1200 is the newest one and the current, but I don't have that. I've been using this for 5 years. So the things I've noticed about this versus this helmet is that the build quality on the RF-1100 is generally a lot better. And what do I mean by that? I mean, first, the air vents, like just the feel of these vents, the chin one and the top ones and the back ones, these just feel more sturdy than these. While these work just fine, they just feel a lot more brittle. The plastic feels a lot cheaper than on the Shoei. Another thing is that the detents on the visor mechanism on the AGV are a lot weaker than the Shoei, so they won't stay in place. For example, if I want to have it partially open, like this, look, when I shake it, it closes. If I do that to the Shoei, like partially open, no way, no how. And this has more detents too. It's like almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7. And this one has like 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4. So you get a lot more adjustability on the Shoei helmet. Now the center lock versus the side lock. I find the center lock a little bit easier to use than the side lock on the Shoei, but it doesn't really make a huge difference. And actually, this, when you have gloves on, is a little bit more difficult to handle, because if you've only used it a little bit, sometimes you hit the vent instead of the locking mechanism. Now, what else is there? The pin lock on this visor is better than the one on the Shoei because it has an indent to seal against the visor around here. So the visor itself has space for the pin lock lens to sit. Or this one is just kind of relying just on the silicone seal around there. So it kind of bows out more sometimes, and then you get more fogging on the edges of the pin lock. I think that's it for that. So on the bottom, the cheek pads on the Shoei come in 2 pieces, whereas on the AGV it comes in 1. So if you were to pull this out, It's all one piece, and that actually makes it more difficult to take out than on the Shoei itself, because it's just easier to unclip each side rather than try to pull out a whole bunch of padding. But I feel like the padding is of similar quality though. So main takeaway is that Shoei just generally has better build quality than the AGV. The AGV just is lacking in that department. But you are getting a really light helmet. It just doesn't feel like a super premium helmet that it should be for its price at $750-ish. Now, I was going to make a video where I'm going to be riding with the helmet and then talking about my riding experiences with it on, but unfortunately, it's been snowing and it looks like this outside near where I live. So I can't do that right now, but I can tell you what the experiences were like. So I've done about 500 miles on this, and the main issue I have with this helmet is the general loudness. So even with the Senna install, it does create a gap, so that's partially my fault for having this, but I wish it didn't have that issue because the Shoei doesn't. So I feel a lot of air come in on the left side of the helmet. If I take this out, there's still a fair amount of air that comes in on both the left and right side. And especially on this gasket here, the gasket against the visor doesn't seal super tight, much less so than the Shoei RF-1100. So you definitely feel a draft constantly coming in from the bottom of the visor, even with it locked. Now, the main complaint with this helmet that other people have, like I mentioned earlier, is the chin strap. Now, the chin strap does get irritating if you over tighten it. If you just tighten it just enough, it's not so bad. But really, they should have just put it further out, especially for how much this helmet costs. They should really think about the details about it. What do I really like about the helmet? Besides that it's modular, it's super light and super aerodynamic. I feel very little buffeting at all. Freeway speeds, local speeds, it's great. I don't feel a lot of resistance, even compared to a regular full face helmet. The venting works just fine, don't have an issue with that. The liner feels good on my head. I've only been using the warm side because it's winter where I am, so I haven't had enough experience with the cool side to say if it makes a big difference. Another thing, if you're going to swap the visor, the visor swapping mechanism is really easy. You just literally press one button and it comes out, it comes unlocked. But you never need to really do that because you have this sweet sun visor, and that's one of the reasons I bought it. So you can just pull that down, and for me, it's eliminated glare just fine. It's not polarized, so it's not, you know, like wearing really nice sunglasses, but it gets the job done when it's too bright out. And you get those light spots when you're cresting a hill or something in the sun. You're going in the direction of the sun. Now, is it worth the $750? If you really, really want a modular helmet that's also really light, this is kind of your only option. And the problem with the Neotech 2 and the Shoeburf, as I mentioned earlier, is that you're shoehorned into a certain type of communicator, and most people who are buying such an expensive helmet will probably have some type of communication system. And I want the ability to switch between a Cardo and a Senna, since they're kind of trading blows at this point in time. So if you really need a light helmet that's carbon fiber and that's modular, this is your only choice, basically. But if you can settle for like a full face, you don't really need the modular, then definitely don't get this. This is just too much money, and the build quality is just not there at that price point. At anything north of 600 should be, you know, a premium quality feeling helmet, and the visor mechanism, the detents, and the buttons, and the amount of sealing with the visor just don't make it feel like a premium helmet. It makes it feel like more something mid-range than top end.